Cymryd y haw.
A mi go Ghaoil tapalet, cymryd y haw hyn.
A mi gymal
Smashing.
Agus chain ten of a horse.
Se Catriona NicԻomhair yn tanam a haram, ach se Parsons yn tanam a fyr yn dyniacam agus marsin. Se Catriona NicԻomhair Parsons a haram yn ish. Se.
Agus Colaisde a haw.
Wel, ham I a alabin, agus rúgad mi an na leowas, Eileanan lois, ansna Eileanan siar, na labin, agus, wel, sin fadda rúgad mi sa hógad mi.
Agus, chis swanio go hacketh.
Well,
the had.
Well, se callum aginish y fec dyn mahir. Agus mar sin, gyd y gwmbig ad y cantin, Catriona callum aginish. Adamse, se y fi gad y cwr adamse.
Agus, the bad.
Well, chanel slonio gan George sin agam, tŵm o fahir, se ian yn tanam y fes y hahir. Se. Ian MacLeod.
Agus, cymryd y hwrw ewas yn y gan?
Wel, fa Gaelic mewn cwrst ar von lair ugad mi. Eg ma farantyn, eg mo hennaverins, mo hennarin, agus eg na dyn mewn cwrst. Agus mar sin fa Gaelic, agus y fiola an, eg yn ddyn an, se.
Agus, each a got me in a fast source on an alpa.
Wel, gas mi se suas fasger Stornoway an na Eileanan lois. Agus rúgad mi an na Ballabig y bhéil an tanam Antigonish tŵfyn Stornoway. An na Scotia y bhéil an tanam an rua. Agus mar sin, mar a hús mi fa Gaelic mewn cwrst adam, agus nuair a fa mi big, agus nuair a chai mi gan y sgol yn thosiach, fa sin y ffwrwch am y sound of ik, gyma fasger Stornoway hyn. Agus chai mi gw bwnsgol hant of ik. Agus biola, agus Gaelic mewn cwrst adam.
Agus yn eich son siarad na Ghaidhlig, am sy ferwa. Can you tell us your name and some of your background and your family history?
All right. The mythologician I'd be glad to do that. Yes, I was christened Catherine. And I was registered as Catherine in Stornoway when I was born, because in those days you weren't allowed to register your children with a Gaelic name. Today you can, but in those days, not. And, but of course my parents and everybody called me Catriona. That was my name, rather than Catherine. And yes, my surname was MacIomhair. MacIomhair, you would say there, rather than MacIomhair. And what can I say? My father was born in Antigonish, as I was myself, and my mother's people came from the Lochs district on the south side of the island. Mother and father from Eileanan and from Uirbost. But my grandparents on my father's side lived in the Point district, which is an Rua in Gaidhlig. And in fact in the little village of Antigonish, and that's where I was born. But when I was growing up a little bit, my parents went to live in Sandwick, which is more or less halfway between Antigonish and Stornoway. And I went first of all to Sandwick Hill Primary School. And after that, we went to live much closer into Stornoway itself, in an area called Guthan Road. And I used to walk to the Nicholson Institute. It was so handy to be able to walk to the high school. And it's called the Nicholson Institute, you see. And so that was my secondary education. And I don't know whether I should mention this, but I was dux of the school. So there you go.
And And an issue of the Gaelic.
Sure.
And roll a Gaelic as a skull. And do the vow.
Well, nuair a chaim mi gan a bhúnscoil, charó a Gaelic y sgitio ach, ag an dhéan am, bhíg sin a giúnsach ag árain Gaelic, fath na húne, agus bhíg na teacher an garjesach ag son séin ag bhád inatal, mád lois, agus an uair sin cúteach ag na máid náisianta. Agus mar sin bheit sin a giúnsach ag nuafas de gárain. Agus gaidir go sin is ceach go bhfuil árain go leor ag am háas den dú sig. Ach, nuair a chaimí an artscoil, búrin gút a Gaelig a gár mar cúspar. Agus mar sin bhí go leor gan a scoilar in a gáil na Gaelig.
So I just asked you in Gaelic, was there any Gaelic taught or spoken in the school when you were a young girl?
Well, yes. In a sense, we weren't taught Gaelic in the primary school, but we learned lots of Gaelic songs. All the time we were learning Gaelic songs. Maybe once a week we would be learning, and very often we would be being prepared to sing at the local mod, the Lewis mod. And the first time I sang at the Lewis mod, I think I was 7 or 8 years old. And I was so proud of myself because I got a second prize. When I went to the Nicholson, though, when I went to the secondary school, you could take Gaelic as a subject. It was offered as a subject. And lots of people did that, of course. But one thing I would like to say that I didn't say in Gaelic, in those days there was no sense that Gaelic was endangered. You have to remember this is the 50s. We're talking about the 1950s. There was no sense at all. There was all kinds of confidence about Gaelic in those days. Nobody ever had a thought that Gaelic might one day be really endangered. So there was no hurry to make sure that people learned it, you see. And in any case, when I went to the Nicholson, so many people came into high school and stayed in the hostel, you know, from the outlying villages, and they were full of Gaelic. They were all Gaelic speakers. Yes.
Agus an ró Céilian nó chudam an cúil ann le an am sin.
Ó bha go matric. Curman hiúil fat na húne, Céilian fat na húne, agus ha mér san a rá cúteach go rán le leoas ag an am sin a bha nam bharil sa coú a bhór chuch gan a sinne ar in a seár ans an húil. A bheith sin as a Gaelic. Sinne ar in mar Kitty Nicholson agus Seannach Nicholson agus Callum Kennedach agus mar sin bheith an mgóirsta an fat na húne. Agus bhíh sin géisteach cúteach dís a radio agus rí teipihin fat na húne an Gaelic. Ó bha. Agus cad a héil sin sian gé, bach an nádara. Sé.
Play in English now at the concerts you attended. Can you describe what that was like, or the Céilis?
Well, they were always extremely well attended, and singers from all over the island would sing. And of course, at that time, some of the best Gaelic singers in the world were from Lewis. People like Kitty MacLeod and Joan Mackenzie and Callum Kennedy and many others that I won't name here, but we were always anxious to hear them sing. And we would listen to them too on tapes and on the radio. There was nothing like Kitty MacLeod. She was the one.
Right.
Yes.
So, Aisha began me in an Chomhradh hackathon.
Oh, van fás me in sin how Gléidheadh. Well, nuair a bheith mi ag Ghaoil go Gléidheadh, agus bheith mi ag gopair Cananach is ag an nám, hachad mi ris an duineacha, Hannig sin a Virginia as na státin son díoch go dhéanamh ag Gléidheadh agus hachar sin, agus fás sin, agus chai sin gan na státin. En is nuair a bheith mis a fású san na leos. Cad os ménig mi idir gom fagin. An dúich idir. Cad os ménig mi Nam bheithe ach seall mar a hachar. Agus ag an náam gom pásig sé mehar a bheith gath. Sé mehar a bheith fánach. Go rom mi a fallaf. Ag an náam gotá charó de chláin ag ma faraldan ach mihín agus díist vraren agus mar sin charó ach uníon agus bheit dúlich me gin dal an tlíag Amerika ach coú sin na hachar agus ba níon acin níon agus sé anna Catriona an tanam a hora. Anna as dé mo henna bheit tíð mehar. Agus, well, sin an tanam a bheit sin dul hort coú ach nuair a bheit min am bhaia sin as an hospital le Anna nam gardanin. Bheit uliam a coiadora agus hannig amach le Anna Catriona. Agus sin an tanam a hug sin ora. Agus ha sin well, ha pástas ha cóignar eiceise. Mar sin ha cóignar áichin agam.
Sé ans
na státin, an the New Hampshire.
So in English, I asked you to tell us a little bit about your own family. So you could...
Well, yes. When I was at the University of Edinburgh, doing graduate work in linguistics, I met my husband-to-be, William. He had come from the States to do theology at New College at the university. And we married, and he took me off to the States. And of course I was my parents' only daughter. I have two brothers, Ian and Colin, but I was the only daughter, and off I went. And of course I had never once dreamed that I would ever leave Scotland, and so you see what happened. And so we had one girl, and we called her Anna, after my grandmother on my father's side. And but we had decided to call her Anna. And I was there in the hospital with her in my arms, and my husband looking down at us, and he simply said, Anna Catriona, and that was her name. And today she's married with 5 of her own and living in New Hampshire.
And the issue bring it back in Gaelic.
Well, hascial big ac immersion. Nuair a bheith mí teachas ge College na Gaidhlig, fatan an blion the sin. Bhí ge sé convarim, fatan haurí. Agus bhí I gimsach a Gaidhlig sin, convarim hín. Agus bhí macu séin, hai macu séin. Agus bhlionna, chosini an dúis a barge, an dúis AWR. Agus haini oran, agus rani, umhafasach ma, sai macu séin, agus súrin dí séin dras a ríist as a Gaidhlig. Can you feel on the idir, ar ón cadam sin awn. Chai a tóca las na státin, agus garo Gaidhlig ag a hahar. Ach, coiú, súrin dí fachman ra. Higi machle fachman no gan dras a ríist.
So in English, I asked if your daughter spoke any Gaelic, and you told a nice story about that.
Well, but when all these summers I taught at the Gaelic College, she was with me, of course. She would come with me during the holidays, her school holidays, and she was learning Gaelic with me there, and Gaelic songs. And in fact, she's a very good singer, and one year she won the AWR award for solo singing. And she is very much still she sings.
Very good.
Yes.
Catriona, I'd like to ask you a bit about your education in Scotland. I understand you attended Nicholson Institute in Stornoway and Edinburgh University. Can you tell us what it was like studying and getting your diplomas and degrees?
Well, if I can remember that far back. But anyway, in the Nicholson, I talked a little bit about this already, but yes, I mean, it was as I look back, I certainly don't feel that I didn't enjoy it. I believe I did. Did all kinds of interesting subjects like science and geometry and Latin and French, and of course, lots of possibilities there because you were in a stream to go to university, so you took courses that were going to work out for you in that way. And many of my friends went to Glasgow or Aberdeen University, but my friend Catriona and I went to Edinburgh, and we didn't regret it one bit. I had the pleasure there of attending the class of William Madison, who was highly regarded and still is as a Gaelic scholar. And in fact, Sean Macpherson, I think, was in that class as well. You'll remember Sean, yes. And he is currently not well, actually, but he was there at the time, and he was in that class as well. But I knew I was interested in language and languages, and I wanted to understand the stuff of language. So I did my graduate work in linguistics. And I was given a wee job too. I worked in the phonetics department at the university, and that's when actually I was given a task. I was to examine my own language, which of course was Gaelic. I had to look at it, the structures of it, and see how I would decipher it. Put my mind to what is this thing? What is the stuff of language with regard to Gaelic? And that's when I discovered something wonderful. I discovered the beauty of Gaelic. The beauty of Gaelic. And to me, English is a wonderful language and wonderful poets and so on, but to me it's sort of functional. Whereas with Gaelic, there's something very special. How many people, has anybody actually written a poem in praise of English? I don't know of any. But Gaelic people write poems in praise of Gaelic, Modern Gaelic, and in Cape Breton, in Scotland, in Dunedin, New Zealand even. And so this is where I discovered how Gaelic was structured. I never really looked at it until then. And that, in fact, has set me off on my journey ever since. That was what began me on this Gaelic journey that I eventually had. I didn't have it in the States, although when I was teaching at Dartmouth College, I was asked if I would do a Gaelic class with a young man who was there, whose last name is McKean, and who has gone on to teach at the Scottish University. So I did have a little bit of Gaelic there. I also had a Gaelic choir when I was in the States. Right. The Gaelic choir of the Twin States, Vermont and New Hampshire. And we went to the Maud in Toronto and that kind of thing. Yes. So I did a little Gaelic while I was there. Yes. But of course, that isn't the milieu. That wasn't the milieu. I mean, yes, when I would wash the dishes, I would be singing to myself in Gaelic. Never going to relinquish this, absolutely not. Unfortunately, my husband was very favourable, very much disposed to the language and the culture. And so it wasn't until I came to Cape Breton that, on my long journey, that I continued with Gaelic.
But you had a very strong foundation being brought up in a Gaelic.
Well, I think so. And I had the love of it.
Yes.
And
ingrained in you.
It was there. I mean, you can't rub it out.
No, that's for sure. And after that, you taught in another university in the States called James Madison University.
James Madison University. That was in Virginia. Yes, that was in Virginia. And I taught English and linguistics there, actually. Yes.
So that was all part of your move to the United States. You said it happened around
Well, I got married in 1962.
62.
Yes, and we left for the States in September 63.
Okay.
Yes.
And after a while there in the United States, there was another move.
Well, the thing is, when my husband was a Lutheran minister, and he had a parish in Virginia, which was his home state, right? And the first year that he was there, of course, he had his vacation in August. So I said to him, let's go to Cape Breton. Because I knew in Nova Scotia there was Gaelic, you see. And of course he was ready, willing, So we went on vacation to Cape Breton. And we met various Gaels then at the time. And I felt so much at home. It was really like being back home. And I met people particularly on the North Shore. And they began to be aware, we kept going back, and they began to be aware that I had Gaelic. And by the late 1970s, I got asked to teach at the Gaelic College at their summer school. So there I was finally getting into, my own language finally and teaching it.
Was there any person that you can think of that might have inspired you along that period to become more involved?
Well, not in the sense of inspiration, because it was, it was as if when the opportunity occurred, I was ready.
Yes.
I was ready.
It was something you
It was something that I must have.
Yeah.
It must have been, just ready to come out. However, it was really nice because Tina Morrison, and I want to say something about her.
Yeah.
Tina was just amazing. She had kept the Gaelic going at the Gaelic College all these years, in the years of AWR. And in the days that she was teaching, everybody had to take Gaelic. It wasn't just a subject you could choose. Everybody had to take some Gaelic. And in those days, they didn't have all the buildings and so on. And in fact, one of the old buildings, she might be teaching Gaelic in one part of it, and in another part there would be another class. And anyway, she came along with Joan Smith. Well, she was Joan Smith then, and then she married Norman McInnes from Skye. So Joan Smith was the director of education at the Gaelic College in those days. And well, first of all, I suppose I should say that Tina was getting on in years. And she went to Leonard Jones, who was the CEO of the college at the time. And she said to him, we must get somebody else to help me. And for a while, Leonard wasn't listening to her. He thought she was doing fine by herself. But finally, he gave in. And since they had met me, and in those days, there wasn't a local person necessarily ready and able and who might teach. So here I was, right? And so they came to see me, and they asked me to teach there. And that's when it all started. That's when my 30 years at the Gaelic College summer school began. And I said yes right away, because I could come, you see. I could come.
That was around 1978?
Well, 76, 77, 78, somewhere in there. The later 70s. Yes, the later 70s.
So I know also, Catriona, that you have published some articles and some books. And
yes.
You have very excellent writing skills. In fact, you even wrote an article about this project, which appeared in the Victoria Standard.
I thought that was a very, very topical and suitable subject.
It was very good. So, could you tell us about some of your published books?
Well, again, having to do with the Gaelic College. After Leonard Jones retired, Jim Macaulay was the CEO. And during his years, which would have begun in the 80s, I guess, he asked me to write a text so that it could be used for Gaelic teaching. And that's actually when I wrote Gaelic from Chomhradh. This is the first volume of 3 that I did at the time. And in fact, the third volume was done when Sam McPhee became the CEO.
Okay, I'm going to get you to hold it up a little higher there.
Okay.
I'm going to zoom in on it.
All right.
And it's called?
Gaelic Chomhradh.
Which means?
Well, Gaelic through conversation.
Right.
The impetus of it was to try to get people to be speaking the language. So while they were picking up the structures, there was all kinds of practice and actual speaking.
Yes.
And in any case, and also in those days,
it's still available for purchase.
Oh yes,
it's at the gift shop.
Oh yes, and of course there are the other two volumes as well, and all the Gaelic words and pronunciations and texts you come along with that. So you can listen to that nowadays, I guess, on a DVD, but initially on tapes. Yes. So I was asked to do that, and that was fun to do. It was, and again, my linguistic training, you see, I was putting it to use, and on my own language. So it was a great pleasure to do that. Yes, and I used it myself later too when I taught at St. FX.
Yeah, and you have some other books there.
Well, the thing is, the one on the Psalms and the hymns came into being because during what is now Gaelic Awareness Month, although I think they're calling it Miasn and Ghaoil nowadays, I started a Gaelic ecumenical choir because we were going to have all Gaelic services in May. It was an effort to keep Gaelic going in the churches, so that, and in fact we alternate between Protestant and Catholic. It's ecumenical, and since there was a Gaelic choir that could sing, it seemed appropriate to produce a little booklet that had Gaelic hymns of all kinds, but also some of the Gaelic psalms, which were so much part of the Presbyterian tradition on the North Shore, which they had brought with them, of course, from Scotland, particularly the Free Church of Scotland. So Andy Hurt, I should mention Andy, he was wonderful. He put the musical score and the whole, he did that in formatted it for me.
You have the book there?
Oh, yes, it's, it's just a little booklet. It's and by the way, it's not for sale. I give it away for free.
Oh,
I've given away about 140 of them by now. Including in North Carolina when I went there to teach last summer, and in fact in Dunedin, New Zealand as well.
Right. And you have one more book there.
Well, this one came into being because of my class in Dunedin, New Zealand. I've been going there now for since 2014. I've been going, although I went for a short time then, but I did teach Gaelic there. And this was under the aegis of the continuing education and summer school program of the University of Otago in Dunedin, which is in the South Island. And of course, Dunedin is for Gléidheadh, Gaelic of Edinburgh. And it's a city that Scots built. And in fact, they built the University of Otago as well, and it's the oldest university in New Zealand. And there's an immense draw to that part of the world and a connection, just as there is to Cape Breton particularly. And so, after having taught them, I decided that I should do another text.
And it's called?
It's called Sealagan, which means glimpses or glances.
Right.
Yes, and I did it specifically with them in mind. And there is a thumb drive with the words as well that you can listen to. But what I was trying to do with this text as well is, again, I mentioned the beauties of Gaelic structure, but so many people I have noticed in Cape Breton, in Nova Scotia, who have begun to learn Gaelic, have tended to shun grammar, have tended to think that they can learn a language without it. And yes, there's a great deal, I believe there is a great deal of credit to be given for all those people who have been learning it through Gaelic, Gaelic Bala. But I wanted to show people that they need not be afraid of grammar, that actually the structures are beautiful, and if they attend to them, then it will be a big benefit to them. But something about grammar is interesting. A lot of people, when they read the Bible, they come away and have they understood it? Have they really read it? Have they picked it up? Have they put this thing with that thing, the prophecies of the Old Testament with what happens in the New? Have they understood that? You've got to have the right attitude of mind when you are reading the Bible. You have to have the right attitude of mind when you are attempting the structures of any language. But I think you'll find that Gaelic structures are beautiful once you pay attention to them.
I also know that you were interviewed on TV, and that the BBC did some radio broadcasts over here, and you were interviewed. Can you talk a bit about that?
Well, I think you're referring to interviews that Catriona Parsons did with me, and he's not related to me, but
he's with the BBC.
He's with the BBC, yes, BBC Gaelic, and from time to time, they send interviewers over from Scotland, and I don't remember much about them, except I remember one that he did when I was at St. FX. He did one with Ken Nielsen and myself, and always really talking about what was happening in Gaelic, at the time in Nova Scotia, generally speaking, I think. I don't have much memory of the other ones, but that was...
Oh, that's good.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, they know we're here.
Yes.
They know we're here. And they're paying attention to what's happening in Gaelic here, yes.
And you're on record there with these tapes in
yes.
the archives somewhere.
Yes,
sure.
oh yes, yes.
Well, I had the pleasure of working with you on a publication myself, and that was the Mishnah newsletter.
Yes,
for the Gaelic Affairs office,
and that was
when we worked
always
together.
Yes,
and
that was always fun to do.
It was
always
indeed, fun. And I think it was a very useful.
I think so too. I think so too, and hopefully they've properly archived it and kept it.
Yes, we hope. There was also another thing you participated in, and that was a theatre production called The Ships of 1801. Were you not in that?
I was in the second one.
In the second
one. Or at least the choir was.
Oh, the choir.
The choir was asked to participate, and we sang a psalm. That's what we were asked to do. Yes. Yes.
Okay, very good.
But when I was at St. FX, I had the Antigonish Gaelic choir as well, and we would sing quite frequently around the province. Yes.
Good. You do a monthly column with the Victorian Standard.
Yes,
as well.
I do. Yes.
And I think your writings have been published in Gaelic magazines called Gléidheadh and GATH.
Oh yes. Well, Guthan is the really well known one. I mean, it was in place for 50 years with Rory McComish as the editor, and of course he was one of the great Gaelic scholars of the 20th century, and himself a very fine Gaelic poet. And I put an article in it once, I think, about Gaelic in Nova Scotia. But otherwise it was poems that Gaelic poems I put in them. And then when Guthan came to an end, then the publication called GATH came into being, and I have a couple of poems and a short story actually. And the neat thing about the short story is I was teaching at the time Gaelic writing at St. FX to a master's class. and Louis McKinnon actually was in that class. Anyway, what I was trying to do with them, they would do an essay in Gaelic, they would do a short story in Gaelic, they would do a poem in Gaelic, and they would write a one-act play in Gaelic. And we would read some examples to give them, a little bit of inspiration. And each one on the class, Maura Burke was in that class as well. And anyway, what I said to myself was, well, I'm asking them to do these things. So when they write a short story, I will write a short story. When they write a poem, I will write a poem. When they write the play, I will write the play. Mm-hmm. And in actual fact, we put the one-act play on at the Bower. We put it on at the Bower, and it was fun to do. Oh. Yes.
Now I'd like to talk a bit about your work in the community, Catriona. Can you tell us a bit about that? I know you were president of the Gaelic Council in Nova Scotia.
Yes.
For some time.
Yes.
And you worked on some very worthwhile projects.
Yes. Before I started working for the Office of Gaelic Affairs, I was president of the Gaelic Council of Nova Scotia. I had to give that up, of course, when I joined the OGA team. That was something that I couldn't continue. But it was a very fun time, actually. The main committee of the Chomhradh at that time, of the council at that time, was very active and ready to go. People like Rodney Chason, for example, he was the treasurer. Truman Madison was on it as well. We had two major projects that we worked on. One of these was the Chomhradh videotaping and videotaping project as far as Gaels of the community, making sure that they were recorded. And the one who really spearheaded that project was James MacDonald. And I think he did a brilliant job, great job. And anybody can go online to Chomhradh and see and hear these wonderful Gaels speaking and telling about their language and their culture. And Seamus Y was very much part of that project. So I think we can be proud of that. Also, at the same time, that's when we were considering very seriously what would be an image that we might have that would stand for Gaelic Nova Scotia. And that's when we put in place the one that we now have. And I understand that, in fact, we're going to be able to have it on our license plate soon.
Mm-hmm. So, Hasakam, can be your hain, a shane out in Gaelic, and the rest of these.
That's it, yes.
And he should go my hain shin.
Well, Mar oes mi mar ha, nuair a bheith mi óg, bhíag sinne sé, as a scoil, agus ag na máid, ag bhaint ina del an na leos, agus ag na máid náisianta cúideach, agus mar sin ha mi a bhí séin, fat mo bheithe, get nach talam a bhí móran an ard úlar, Charlam a bhí séin códarí carriagin agus an clas, agus rud mar sin nuair a bhí smíte agus fachlan gaibh. Agus coiú, stalam a bhí séin mar a thuairt mi mar ha, bhí mi séin coiú, gona bhí sméineach a go bhfuil mi ga dhéanam nuair a bhí mi ní na séichin is rud mar sin, bhí mi séin coiú.
And absolutely, I understand that you sing Gaelic yourself now and then, and can you tell us about that?
Well, as I said before, we learned lots of songs when I was young, and we were expected to sing. And yes, I've sung on the stage in Stornoway many times, and at Colaisde and at the various mods, that kind of thing. And so really, although I'm not strictly speaking a performer, I don't go around singing on the stage, but I love to sing with friends and when I'm teaching, of course, passing on songs. This is a major impetus.
And you lead a Gaelic choir?
Oh, well, I've got, yes, I've been doing that since, yes. And actually, I didn't mention this before, but when I was teaching at the Gaelic College, I had a young person's choir as well. I had a children's choir as well. And in fact, I even had one in Antigonish for a while.
Good.
Yes. So getting people to sing really is, I mean, if you sing, you'll get them to sing.
Yes, and it's a good way to learn Gaelic.
Indeed, absolutely, yes.
So you've produced a CD of songs.
Oh yes.
It's kind of a lifelong.
Oh yes. Do I have to hold it up?
Yes.
Do I have to hold it up?
Zoom in on that, so everybody will see it. It's called Eileanan
Gléidheadh.
So you can tell us a bit how did that all come about, and who inspired you to do it? And
well, two things really. My husband William had died in 2000, and that was rather unexpected. And I had often thought that I would perhaps record something that I would dedicate to him while he was still alive. And I'd never did that. So I did have him in mind when because he was in all those adult choirs with me, He was the anchor bass in the choir. He had a wonderful voice. And so he was very much with me in the whole Gaelic endeavour, you see. And so that was one thing. The other reason for doing it was that, well, I belong really. It's as if I have one foot in Gaelic Scotland and one foot in Gaelic Nova Scotia. And it occurred to me it would be fun, among other things, to do a CD as a kind of tribute to the Gaels on both sides, to the Gaels that I knew, that I grew up with, and the Gaels who had been so good to me here. And so I chose some songs that I had known myself, and learned back home in Lewis, and songs that were Cape Breton songs. And so that was a major reason for it as well. So although I dedicated it to William, to my husband, I hope it's clear that it's for my friends, my Gaelic friends on both sides of the ocean that I did it. And it wasn't done to be, a big thing. It was done for my friends, really. Yes, with them in mind.
Very nice, a good accomplishment.
Well, it was a great thing to do. It was fun to do. Yes.
I guess, could you hear on a shed, what's your favourite Gaelic song?
Oh, well, my favourite one is Long and Sad. Long and Sad. It's actually the first one on the CD, and it's a song called Gléidheadh and Ghaidhlig, which was made by William McKennick, Bard Cloncoosbig, in my own native district of Point, Rua. And he wrote other songs as well, particularly after his wife died. And he ended his days in Thunder Bay in Canada. So, he followed after his wife died, he followed his sons there. And so I grew up with him. I grew up with his songs. But it's a bit long and it's a bit sad. So I don't think it's one I should try now. Seo áran ein John McKinligan, mar áran Ghaoil da Breton. This is a song written by Jonathan McKinnon, and it really is a love song to Cape Breton. Eileanan Garam and beyond the Nard, the blue-green isle of the high mountains. Eileanan Garam and beyond the Nard, Cheer Moguk is cheer Mograi, Chomhradh a bhuaile strai, Moni mi carochu. Cheer is alle half on grain, Craig is clean, is wrench and ray, Carlia gluna mila cake, Sanquanier Colaisde Ans y glawn fel sy'n hun, Fain bes diach yn tîr, Chanel jeres orn o gi, Chanel yn wych o san yr ein. Faren dŵr mi marach og, Fanny mil tals le John, Chomhradh sgwmpi mi bio, Chatriona yn torm o fiaddus. Eileanan gorom yn biawnt yn art, Tir mo gwch, tir mo grai, Chomhradh a bhuaile strai, Moni mi carochu. Garosh yn maidid.
Sy'n neddach gael. So that's a beautiful song. And you told me the lyrics are available in your CD cover.
Yes, they are.
Liner notes. And they're also online.
Well, they're certainly in Donald Ferguson's book. I'm pretty sure they are. They're readily available.
Right.
They might even be in Helen Creighton's book.
Very good. So I was also wondering if you had a short Gaelic story that you'd like to share. That would be helpful maybe to Gaelic learners.
Well, I was thinking about this, and it occurred to me that it would be good to choose one that has connection with the Gaelic College.
Oh, good.
When I was teaching there, and when Evelyn Smith was still alive, Evelyn from Recove, she would come to our immersions at the Gaelic College, and she always had this story that she would tell. And so I thought it would be good really to tell her story, or try to, not as well as she would tell it. But I'd like to tell you a little bit about Evelyn just before the story itself. Her people came from Harris in Scotland, and she had never been back there. Never been back. And when she and her husband Alec had reached, they were in their 60s, maybe even as old as 70, their children gave them a trip back to Scotland. They'd never been. And of course she was going to go to Harris. And I was talking to her before she went, and she told me that, about the trip. And with tears in her eyes, she said, Gaidhlig. And that told me how strong the tie was, still, with Anchan Dewey, The memory is long. The memory is long. And then when she came back, she said people thought that she had, she was speaking Gaelic to them, and they thought she had emigrated and was back on holiday. And they would say to her, how long have you been away? And she would say, 200 years. 200 years. So I thought that was a nice wee story to tell you about Evelyn Smith. Anyway, this is the story that she would tell. Okay. It's a wee bit risque, but anyway, not too bad, not too bad. Va morag agus Anna, a fudach ans na herig. She perich in a vonta, agus vad og, agus charwad past ichir. Agus vad de fudach le hele an na tai big snog snasal. Agus charóad son gumbi sian tre héle. Wat son gumbi go hula sian rianer. Agus va cartachke. Agus chalige gat amach an cart idir. Va dragorre nan lige gat amachi mach se cat va chagon shora se cat born van. Va dragorre nan lige gat an cart amach gum big pishaken eke. Agus an noorsen vegne pishaken a dom an koersen tai vig snog achte agus a hula sian tre hele. Agus ga lige gat an cart amach la no eiche saurig no gaurig. Agus mar sin van cartastei. Agus ha mi keinjach gum big se vesmeenjach. Gro an cart Gléidheadh a golamach. Go Harry nur a higig na ket iron man koerst. Ach ko you gaan naigi amach as a shit. Idir. Wa smeenig het gum bachar do Anna a gof son kostna gelorak in a Veenland. Agus sin a reini, galavi, agus huri opir. Agus charwa fata gus na chynnichi di gilje og tapi. Agus an oorsin hásig an sri. Agus charwa fata station gus an dreinat suas an engine gum pásagat. Agus sin a reinat. Agus galavat an turis bainse. Koju va marak ekentui ans na hedig leis a chat. Agus va I fehef carson nach roi fein lichtjer. A yéisigi kimmer va groichin le Anna agus an dineke. Agus last la va coint amach son, well, an danik an post le lichtjer. Mujerig, kuri sule machas an dinjak agus chunigi an post a chien, agus chura lichtjer an sa veilbox. Gavi amach an an kafak, agus huri lichtjer, as huki steia, agus riapi fuskeltja. Agus vair san lichtjer, a levig, ach je van sa lichtjer, ach an peper moorsja, le keir faklen, giro keir faklen, de fepersja. Agus sjone faklen a de feper, Jikke mach een kat. Sinne neer ma ha eg eirig. Oh shit a weer. Hoor dat am hien hier toen is a hoorde meer. Agus bia kur eirig nam geine. Sin rood na good job. Like all looks like all. Shit.
En dus, Catriona, ben je in an open jacket. Amsterdam this time. And now a little bit about your work and your career again. Can you tell us a bit about your experience at St. X on the faculty at St. X?
Well, at St. X, it was a real pleasure, of course, working with Ken Nielsen. He was a great colleague and a great scholar, and we got on really well together, which was a good thing. My job was to prepare the students in first and second year Gaelic, so that when they came to him in third year, that they would be ready to get really advanced in Gaelic. And I think I must have done that because he didn't complain anyway. And it was when I was there that we started, in fact, a fourth level of Gaelic as well. And in fact, we started the master's program there too. And I did master's classes in creative writing and in the Gaelic literature of the New World, really, although most of it was Cape Breton and Nova Scotia material. And that was in fourth year, and these classes were taught through the medium of Gaelic. I think it might be a good thing to say at this point that certainly at that time, and I think still, St. FX has the only full Celtic program in North America outside of Harvard University. And so, you know, I feel that we should be pretty proud of that. And we have graduated students who have gone to teach Gaelic in Scotland and who are now fluent. I have one student who is still teaching at the high school on the island of Eileanan, and another one who is teaching on the island of Mull through the medium of Gaelic. And it's a real pleasure for any teacher when her students go out and do so well and show that they have really learned. And it's been great. I love teaching. I mean, that's I suppose what I was meant to do.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to ask you now, Catriona, what changes have you seen over the years with regard to Gaelic in Nova Scotia since you arrived here? There's been some ups and downs along the way, and there's quite a history about Gaelic, and there was a report produced one time called the Kennedy Report that spoke about the state of Gaelic. I think it was 2001 that report was written. There's been an increased interest in Gaelic. It's pretty obvious in the last while.
That's right.
So things like that, if you'd like to comment on anything like that.
Well, what to say? Certainly in the 70s, an effort was made by bringing teachers, as I mentioned before. But as early as the 1920s, I think it was, there was an effort to bring Gaelic into the schools in Nova Scotia. And signatures were gathered for that very reason. Really, there's been, it's not as if there hasn't been efforts from time to time, but when those signatures were gathered, way back in the 20s, the excuse that the government of the day had was that they had nobody with qualifications to teach it. And then it subsided again. But of course, a war came up as well, and there were other things on people's minds, not to mention the depression of the late 20s and 30s. And so it wasn't really until the 70s again that people began to think we should do something. And that's when they brought the teachers over. And of course, Effie and Margie were brought and have been doing heroic work on behalf of Gaelic ever since. But it's as if there are waves of enthusiasm and effort. And in Scotland itself in the 80s, that's when they began to really get on the ball with regard to what are we going to do to preserve Gaelic in the future. And maybe that spilled over into Nova Scotia, but it certainly, there was a kind of momentum. And by the later 90s, when Cumhradh na Gaelic was put into place, the Gaelic Council of Nova Scotia, Gaels again came together, and there was a sense that maybe now was the time. When the 21st century came about, then there seemed to be more impetus towards preserving the Gaelic language. And so it was, I think, a very good thing at the time that Rodney MacDonald became Premier as he did, coming himself from a Gaelic background and having studied Gaelic at St. FX, I believe. In any case, because of him, the Gaelic office, the Office of Gaelic Affairs was put into place, and things began to gain momentum on behalf of Gaelic. Especially, I think there were 5 people employed at the time who worked very hard to make sure that things were progressing as they ought to. Unfortunately, since that time, with the cuts that have been put into place, it seems to me by people who have no full understanding of what is required to preserve a language, nor are they thinking at all about the United Nations Charter that minority languages must be preserved, not may be preserved, but must be preserved. And since Gaels, after all, my goodness, at the time of Confederation, Gaelic was the third most spoken language in Canada after English and French. And so it seems to me that cutting is not exactly the way to go.
Well, I certainly agree with you there. But there was a recent report published in Nova Scotia about culture in Nova Scotia. I think it was being worked on before those cuts were made, and it finally came out 2 years later, I think in March.
Yes.
Have you read that report?
Yes, I have. I've read it twice, as a matter of fact. Well, I do think that it is very important for the indigenous languages to be preserved, and certainly the emphasis in that report seemed to be on preserving those, and that's a good thing. But on the other hand, very little was said about Gaelic, apart from words having to do with strengthening Gaelic. But it wasn't made clear really what that meant. The report does say that Gaelic should be in school. I remember that accurately, along with, of course, French, which, after all, is an official language of the country, and Mi'kmaq in Nova Scotia. But it wasn't altogether clear. I
think the words were strengthening the Gaelic office.
Was it strengthening the Gaelic office? Then maybe I misread it. Well, strengthening the Gaelic office isn't necessarily strengthening the Gaelic language. So I think there should be more emphasis on that and more funds. In fact, the cutting should be reviewed.
Definitely, yes. So with regard to the school system, the Department of Education have allowed some Gaelic to be taught in the schools. Yes. How do you feel about that and about the resources that are available to teachers within the school system?
Well, the resources that are available come from a special funding and not from the normal, everyday payment of teachers. So, in effect, the teachers of Gaelic are not being treated in exactly the same way as other teachers are. It's as if this were a fringe benefit rather than something seriously thought of.
How could it be made more secure?
Well, Gaelic teachers should be treated like other teachers. They should be paid in the same way as other teachers. Their positions at the moment go from year to year, as far as I understand it. And I do feel too there should be more oversight on the teaching itself, because we don't have that.
Would it be helpful to have a person within the Department of Education to oversee?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There should be somebody from the Gaelic community who has the necessary understanding in the Department of Education, who would also, pioneer particular things that should happen. But it's quite clear to me that the present government has nothing like this in mind.
Okay, what about as far as changes go? Have you seen any changes in the milling frolic scene over the years? I know you attended quite a few milling frolics.
Yes. Well, of course, particularly I did on the North Shore when I came to Cape Breton first, and then they would have wonderful milling frolics there. Some of the North Shore singers were still alive, and yes, it was men largely, of course. It was men in Cape Breton, whereas it was women's work in the old country. But I used to say jokingly that when the men saw what fun it was, they elbowed the women out of the way and sat in themselves. But of course the men were full of songs too, and so they had that opportunity. But more and more today, younger people are involved, which is wonderful to see. The young people sitting side by side with their elders as they sing at the milling frolic. So I think this is a good sign.
A very good sign. Yes, indeed. So what future do you see for Gaelic in the years to come, Catriona?
Well, this may sound a bit from left field to some people, but I've always had a sense that the Lord himself is for Gaelic. He's kept it going this far, and I think, I'm optimistic. I'm an optimistic individual anyway. And it's been a marvellous journey, really, to see that Gaelic is being carried forward and that people are learning it and want to learn it and are aware that they should learn it, because it's if history had been different, it would have been theirs. It would have been theirs. So it's wonderful that they are learning it. And no, I see a good future. I see a good future, especially, as there are. We see other minority languages, also given their chance, and so why not Gaelic? And when you consider the history and the literature and the songs and everything that belongs to it, no, it mustn't. It mustn't.
And the numbers of people registering for classes and sessions at the Gaelic College, is very impressive.
It has grown wonderfully, yes, especially for those. Spring weekends that they've had recently, and in the summer too.
Yes, great. Do you have any advice now for Gaelic learners of all ages?
Well, I suppose I could go on about this, but just one thing fairly briefly. Don't be afraid of grammar. Don't be afraid of grammar. You cannot learn a language without knowing the structures of the language. And when you realize that Gaelic structures are beautiful and logical, you will take to them, and this will help your fluency enormously. And so I recommend that you spend some time in grammar. But also, one of the things that works very well as you are perhaps reaching the intermediate stage is reading children's books. Do you know that the libraries in Nova Scotia have Gaelic books? The library, People's Place in Antigonish, there are children's Gaelic books there. Go to the library in Sydney, you'll find children's books. I have a clergy class that I teach, and one of them, Lydia McKinnon, brings me these Gaelic books from the library, and she works on them, and it's a big help as well. So I really had two things, didn't I? Not just
and of
one.
course singing, as we said before, is a big help to learn again.
Yes.
They go hand in hand.
You can't learn Gaelic and not sing. No.
And they say everything sounds better in Gaelic.
Well, we know that.
So would you like to say anything else, Catriona, before we end the interview? Do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share?
Well, it's been an amazing journey, and I'm glad to say it's continuing, because I have no intentions of giving up on what I'm doing. But I'd also like to say what a pleasure it has been working with you, Pauline, working with you in the Gaelic office, side by side as we were. And so it's really nice to be involved with this project along with you.
Thank you, Catriona, and likewise. I'd like to thank you now on behalf of the Gaelic College for participating in this interview, which will be enjoyed for years to come by a lot of different people. And to hear your words and your wisdom, and to hear your beautiful Gaelic song. And Hamidachas can be Colin in the East.
Has me.
Gléidhedh.
Gléidhedh.